button. And tonight you're tuning into the Wednesday edition where we start to begin to dive into the next opponent. And that always starts with the injury report, obviously. So let's just waste no time and get right into it. The injury report was released just a few minutes ago, and I want to give a shout out to Paul Brettel for tweeting it out for everybody. And here's what we're looking at so far, guys. We did a show earlier today. You probably caught that stream, whether you caught the live stream or the video later. Lucas Van Ness back at practice, really good stuff. Obviously, Marshawn Lloyd continuing to practice. Savion Williams returned to practice. And there was one more. I'm trying to think of who it was. There's another player that came back. Christian Welch. That's right, linebacker. So here's our first injury report. The releases every Wednesday on a normal Sunday game. And oh, by the way, schedule change. Next week, we play on Saturday night against the Bears. Going to be absolutely awesome. Saturday night primetime. And then the following week, the Ravens, Saturday night primetime. So make sure you guys adjust your calendars accordingly. We'll be doing pregame shows and postgame shows for all of that coming up. So here is the Packers injury report. Javon Bullard limited. Let's just go down the line. Actually, let's just talk about the did not participates, okay? And then we may take a little bit of time for the limited because there are a bunch of players that are limited here. And this is a good thing in my opinion, right? Anytime you've got literally one player that did not participate in practice, other than the players obviously that are not on injured reserve, that only player is Josh Jacobs. Now, listen, that's a huge one, right? Although it's the knee that's been, bothering him this entire time. I imagine he's planning on playing on Sunday. I wouldn't be surprised if Josh Jacobs, this is his injury status for the rest of the year. It's just take it very, very easy. Let's just don't overextend that knee. Don't, get him out there on the practice squad too much and let him kind of just kind of get that veteran rest, if you will, man. He's been toting the rock a lot. He runs hard. We've seen the key plays as we broke down the plays last night from the win over the Bears. Running hard this time of year. It's getting colder weather. The body's starting to get broken up a little bit more. I'm totally cool with Josh Jacobs not practicing for the rest of the year, right? And we know he knows everything about this offense. He's a leader in that locker room. There's no one who's going to look over and go, why ain't he practicing? They know he's the workhorse. So I feel really good about this injury report. You get a number of different players. We'll just rattle them off here in terms of being limited. Javon Bullard, Brenton Cox Jr., Kingsley Enagbare, Matthew Golden, Marshawn Lloyd. Full participation was Jordan Love with the left shoulder. He's good to go, obviously. Colin Oliver. You've got Jaden Reed, Jordan Riley, Zach Tom, Lucas Van Ness, Christian Welch, Dontavion Wicks, and Savion Williams. So the majority of those players obviously are all limited there other than Josh Jacobs, who did not participate, and Jordan Love with the full participation. Now, there is a couple of notes to make here. Brenton Cox Jr., Marshawn Lloyd, Colin Oliver, they've been designated to return from injury reserve. However, they're currently within that 21-day practice window. So what that essentially means is they're still ramping up. Now, those guys could go this weekend, right? Like Marshawn Lloyd, there's a chance he could possibly go. Colin Oliver, same thing. I think the one that kind of sticks out to me the most here is Brenton Cox Jr. However, if you're getting Lucas Van Ness back, which obviously he practiced today in a limited fashion, but he was out there, I imagine that, you'll kind of ease Brenton Cox Jr. a little bit more into the fold later if LVN can go. Now, if Brenton Cox Jr. is way ahead of schedule and he can go, and then Lucas Van Ness maybe needs to take a step back, that might be the approach as well. So we'll keep an eye on that for sure moving forward with the Packers injury report. Moving on to the Broncos side, they've only got 4 players on the injury report, and that's Nate Atkins tied in with the knee injury. He's limited. Pat Bryant, wide receiver. I think that's a rookie, right? Let me double check my notes here. I think we had him on the board this year. Give me just a second. Pat Bryant. Yeah, we have Pat Bryant at a 112.6 grade, which means he's worthy of about around the 100 to 120th pick range, somewhere around there. So he's got a hamstring. He did not participate. I imagine that's something that we're going to want to monitor all week long. Hammies in cold weather obviously is going to be an issue, although maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chat, but if I understood the forecast correctly, it's supposed to be up around 60 degrees in Denver Sunday, which is wild to think about, obviously, for the month of December. So mid-December at that. But DJ Jones, defensive tackle with an ankle injury, full participation. And then Ben Powers, guard with a bicep injury. He was limited. So only 4 players on that. And Ben Powers is the same as those other 3 players for the Packers, where he's designated to return from injury reserve. So they're ramping him up, and he's in that 21-day practice window. We got Emilio joining us now. Emilio, you didn't miss much, man. We're just kind of briefly going over the injury report. The news that we broke earlier today LVN back at practice in a limited fashion. That's great news, right? He's probably ramping up to try to go Sunday. And that's really the only one you're overly concerned about is Josh Jacobs with the knee. But like I was saying, man, maybe you see it different. I kind of feel like Josh Jacobs in this sense is probably going to be like this the rest of the year. Just, hey, let him sit out practice most of the time, get him the reps when he needs them. But for the most part, that dude's good to go. Just make sure he's resting that knee as much as possible. Oh, can't hear you, Emilio. Check your mic, big dog. Emilio's been having some technical difficulty. It's funny you said that too, because when I went to log in, the wind picked up, knocked everything out on me, so I had to reboot and jump back in here.
You can hear me now?
Yeah, we got you, big dog. We got you, man.
I don't
honestly,
know what
the question was, but
I think there's a lag too, man. That storm that's hitting right now is just struggling outside. But yeah, no, I think you're right with Josh, man. Just fighting through that injury, but we know that he's all about how he's going to be able to handle his pain with that, and he's going to tell if he's not ready, if he's not going to be able to go. I think that he'll be in good shape, but I think you're right. Keep that tag on him. Keep that tag on most of these guys, just so you get that extra rehab. Take it easy on it. Just as long as you can play in the game is all that matters.
Yeah, definitely. Coach Lynn in the chat said LVN more edge with JJ and kick Gary inside. Boy, I'd be all about it, man. I think Gary is a little bit better built to play 3-tech, to be honest with you, man. Now, the flip side of that, Coach, is obviously you don't want to upset the run defense, right? Now, you would think Gary, as good as he is against the run, he's our best defensive lineman against the run, matter of fact, he'd be able to absorb that more than anyone, but it's hard for me, Emilio, when I read Coach Lynn's comment. It's still hard for me to get out of that mindset of a two-gapping 3-4 defense, because we ran it for so long, right? I mean, all the way back to, what was it, 2009 when Dom Capers came in? From that point forward, we stayed in the 34. So I immediately think, nope, Gary's not big enough to two-gap. And I'm like, well, we're not two-gapping, right? Just occasionally when the scheme calls for it. But what do you think about that, man? How would you feel about Gary kicking inside, or do you think that might upset the apple cart a little bit?
Honestly, I mean, I feel like Gary and LVN are sort of interchangeable in the fact of, like, we walk LVN down when we go in that NASCAR package when he's out there. I think Gary can do the same thing. I think if you let Gary and Micah both stand up and you can kind of flutter that in a little bit, I feel like most of those guys are pretty interchangeable. Micah, LVN, and Gary could all play 3 and out, no problem. You see Micah in on the nose. It's all about how you're attacking them as well. If you're trying to attack with power and, drive through the guy, it's a different aspect for putting, Gary out there versus Micah. So it's just really what you're looking for in that time against what team.
Yeah, great point. Soder in the chat says LVN neutralizes Knicks more than Gary. If you're talking about the scrambling ability, completely agree. If you had to pick between those two defenders, Gary or LVN, maybe playing a little cage rush or a contain on the edge, I'm definitely picking LVN. He's got the wingspan. He's got the quickness, obviously. He's much younger. I completely agree with that. Although I don't know how much Bo Nix is looking to run, to be honest with you. I haven't watched much of their tape yet. But we could probably pull his stats and kind of see that if we wanted to. And we're going to dive into some of the rankings in terms of the PTA rankings next. But that's an interesting point there. I like what Soder said. So if you had to choose between the two, you had to put one at 3, you had to put one on the edge, and you got a mobile quarterback. Probably does make a little more sense to have LVN out there rather than Gary. But most likely, neither of these guys will be playing a 3-tech unless we're in that Joker, or not the Joker package, but the Cheetah package, right? So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, unless at some point you say, hey, I want my best 4 out there, and you walk one of them in there for a drive, and you're just saying, hey, Gary, you're going to have to play 3 for me this drive, or, you and LVN are going to rotate. We're going to move Micah around. Maybe it's a package Hafley adds week 16, 17, gets 2 games with it, maybe sprinkles it in last game of the season, and then you start using it in the postseason. You never know, but you always got to think kind of one step ahead. Where are we heading? And again, what team are we going against? Are they run heavy, pass heavy, scrambling, whatnot?
Absolutely. Ron Samuel in the chat says, I keep thinking Gary looks slower, but it's not fair to compare him to Parsons. It's not fair to compare anybody to Parsons, man. Mm-hmm. It's really not. He is, and I know exactly what you mean. You see Gary not be able to run Caleb Williams down. You think, oh, Gary's slow. No, Gary's a pretty quick defender. Caleb's really fast. He's been clocked numerous times over 20 miles per hour. And thank God for Micah Parsons being able to run that 4.3 40. So,
right.
All right, so there's you a quick look, like I said, the early look, the first day look at the injury report. So if you guys are watching this video back later, let us know in the comments. How do you feel about the injury report? To me, it looks like we're as healthy as we've been all year long, outside of the players that are on IR, obviously. But we want to hear from you guys and gals in the comments. Let us know who you're concerned about, or maybe one that we sounded concerned about that you disagree with. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you're notified when we do go live here in the near future.